welcome to another edition of Emerging Titans on ET Now. I'm Anisha Jain. Well, joining me today for a conversation is a non-conventional leader of sorts because she's leading traditional industries which are associated with mining, exploration, etc. But how's she looking at marrying it with the future and making sure that sustainability is a large part of the future of these companies? That's something that we'll try and decode today with Priya Agarwal Hebbar of the Vedanta Group. Hi Priya, thanks so much for making time for us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, that's exactly the first question because I understand you're donning multiple roles, right? From the fact that you're very passionate about music, wildlife, you're raising a young daughter, and of course, you're leading multiple businesses. But is this something that you had charted for yourself? Because rumor has it that you were thrown into the deep end, and it's only through a news headline that you got to know that you're part of the leadership team at the Vedanta Group.
So it's been quite a journey, and I can't say that it's always been the decision that I've taken in terms of being a part of the Vedanta family. It's something that did come upon me with the story that you heard, which was on a television news channel. However, the philosophy and the DNA behind Vedanta has always been an inspiration for me in whatever I wanted to do in my career path. There was at 16, 18, 20, at 12, I had very, very different ambitions. I've ranged from wanting to become a wildlife photographer to wanting to be a part of a band to I'm an absolute, always have been a nature junkie. So I've done a lot of treks, been a part of nature, always wanted to be part of wildlife conservation. So there's been a lot going on in my youth with lots of different thoughts and processes, and in that what has always inspired me is the philosophy behind Vedanta. I think the few very, very inspirational facts about the company for me is one, the fact that its philosophy and its heart lies in giving back. My grandfather's philosophy has always been no institution can fly without two wings that are equally besides each other. One is your artha and the other is your dharma. Artha is the value you create, and dharma is how you use that value to give back to society, to community. And everything I did, I knew that a part of it I wanted to give back and do something for the betterment of our community, of our country, of the world. And in that process, one day I did turn on the television channel and see that I've become a board member of Vedanta. I did have a bone to pick with my father that day, but he is that man who likes to throw. He's a man of principle. He always believes in hard work and determination, and he always believed in me. I may not have believed in myself then. Today things are different, but he always believed in me, and he threw me into the deep end, like you said. And it's been a great journey. And I wouldn't, I'm very, very grateful that I even have or had the choice to be in a company like this and be a part of the decision-making part of the company, of a company like this. So I'm very, very grateful, and today there's nowhere else I'd rather be.
Oh, wow. And that's the mark of the visionary, right? He knew it better than you, perhaps, at that point of time that you're chalked out for this. But a bit more about the upbringing, because I just wanted to understand how difficult or easy was it for you to get your identity straight. And I say that because, of course, you have your roots right there, in deep parts of India on one hand, but at the same time, you have that privileged upbringing of sorts. And I say it with, full consciousness there, but you had the option of, being in London and probably having a more cushioned life per se there. How did you find and marry the two and find your own identity amidst all of this?
So, I think I'm very grateful that I've been at the more comfortable part of my father's journey. He's seen absolute struggle and a modest background from where he's come. In fact, when I was born, they had to sell the carpet in the house to pay for my mother's C-section. So that's where it all started. And we've come a long way from there. I've been at the better part of it, and I'm extremely, extremely lucky for that. However, something that I admire very much, I think the most about my parents, is the principles that they've brought me and my brother up on. There's never been a time that whatever school I went to, they ensured that the way and my lifestyle was exactly like everyone else in my class, whether it was walking to school or making sure I take the tube to school, or making sure that there's never been a designer brand in my closet. They've been very, very, very strict about taking economy flights always. Which is something that I truly appreciate and something that has molded my brother and me. My brother used to go to work to Pune from Mumbai in the train every week.
Wow.
So that is, and because my father is first generation entrepreneur, he wants to make sure that we know what the world really is out there. We spent a lot of time, even every weekend. It was made a point that my grandfather would take us to orphanages or different organizations across the city, wherever we were, to ensure that we know what's going on outside of the comforts that we live in. So I very much appreciate that, and I very much feel that that is what has helped us grow into the people that we are today, and that is something that Akash and me will also ensure in how we raise our daughter as well.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, but I'm just going to take a segue of sorts and ask you then, this entire talk that you made about the upbringing in that sense, was it at some point of time a given, as is the notion in traditional families, that your brother would be leading the business? Because your father has gone on record and said that the succession planning at Vedanta is purely going to be on merits. It's not that my family is sort of set for running it. What's your view on that?
Neither of us have ever been told or ever been in a platform where my father has said that we will be taking over the business. It's not something that our philosophy or our family believes in. This is something that one earns. This is something that this company is not just my father's. It's not just something that belongs to one individual. It belongs to the communities that we're present in. It belongs to the shareholders that, of course, are a large part of our company. It belongs to the government. It belongs to many, many different, our employees. So it belongs to many different people, and they are the ones who have to decide who they feel is right to lead the company. And it's a company that will be led by each and every individual at each and every different level. It's not about one person or two people.
Yeah, and as you said, it's about the ethos of the company, which is giving back to the community, which will stay true throughout whoever is the leadership there. But, just talking about the industry a bit here, because the two biggest disruptions which are happening right now globally is Gen AI, which of course brings us to the semiconductor, and the energy transition, whether it's through EVs and the kind of generation, etc. What's the implication of these on the mining industry? And how do you think India and Vedanta is placed for it?
So it's very, very interesting, because especially when we talk about the energy transition, the World Bank suggests we need 1.7 trillion US dollars in mining investment just for the energy transition to happen successfully. 1.7 trillion dollars. And this is because the entire energy transition, everything that we're going to build to make that happen, requires minerals, requires transition metals, requires critical minerals, which everybody is talking about. Vedanta 2.0 is a company that is committed purely to the energy transition, everything that we do. Our focus is transition future critical minerals. Our focus is energy, whether it's renewable energy or others, and whether it's technology. Everything that we do is going to be only focused on the energy transition, and we're going to do it in a way which is 100% future ready and sustainable. We have committed to doing everything with 100% renewable energy. 3 of our companies are looking at getting there within the next decade. 3 of our largest companies, whether it's Hindustan Zinc, Kane, or Zinc International, all will be running purely on renewable energy within the next decade itself. So this is something that we're very, very committed towards. And even the S&P Global, they have rated Hindustan Zinc as the #1 mining company in the world in terms of sustainability, and Vedanta is rated #3. So this is a commitment, this is a passion, and the energy transition, whether it's the semiconductor, whether it's everything else that we're talking about, nothing is going to happen without the application of large amounts of minerals.
And I think the roadway to that is, of course, the 4 mineral blocks that you guys recently garnered in the critical mine segment. Is that something that you guys are actively bidding for or looking at making deeper inroads into?
Absolutely. We're focusing more and more on critical minerals. We're focusing more and more, like, with graphite, cobalt, and these are the minerals that are very, very much required for the energy transition. Of course, you can't do it without the base large metals like aluminium, zinc. All of these metals are very, very important. In fact, for India, just for domestic use, 75% of our zinc is used domestically because of the way our country is growing, the way our country is developing. If we want our infrastructure to be sustainable, we have to ensure that it's galvanized with zinc. So all of what we're doing is focused towards critical minerals, minerals of the future, and really we're also spending 50,000 crores on Serentica under Vedanta Inc. on developing renewable energy, 10,000 megawatts of renewable energy as a first phase. So all very, very future ready businesses going forward.
Very future ready. And correct me if I'm wrong, you're looking at what? Doubling your zinc capacity, making your silver capacity 3x, ramping up aluminum very fast. Talk to me about the roadmap of all of this capacity expansion. You talked about 50,000 crores in Serentica itself. What about the others?
I mean, you've done very, very good research before coming here. We do have a vision of 2 million tons, so doubling our zinc capacity. We're already crossed 1 million a few years ago. We have 3 million tons of aluminium is our focus. We want to double our oil and gas production. We want to make sure that our silver should reach about 2,000 MT. We're already close to 800 KT. So I think overall, where we, in terms of growth, in terms of the way we are setting ourselves up for the future, like we said a few years ago, that in the next 3 to 5 years we'll be a company with 10 billion EBITDA, and the way towards this really is everything that I've just mentioned. The DNA of Vedanta, the DNA of my father has been projects. One of the big projects that I can talk about, one that I visited very recently, was Jharsuguda. When I went there, it was amazing. It was absolute barren land, over a decade ago, and today it's the largest smelter in the world. 70 kilometers of aluminium pots, it's pot lines and aluminium smelting. It's amazing that, and the story behind it is how my father was sitting on a railway track with his very, very long-term companion, Siddiqui ji.
Okay.
They were both sitting on the railway track, and he said that, "Yahan pe ek din, one day I will build the largest aluminium smelter in the world." Nobody could believe him.
Yeah.
Everyone thought, he's
it's
just
up in
talking,
the
it's up
air.
in the air, and today this is where it is. And in the pipeline, we have 50 more large projects which are being driven, and these will really ensure that we're heading towards the 10 billion EBITDA that we've spoken about.
So the other thing I wanted to discuss with you is the demerger, right? Because it was announced last year, and the timeline for it, if I have it right, was December 24, which is just around the corner. Any hiccups, any pushbacks from government or anything of that sort?
I think the demerger is well on its way. I think it's one of the best decisions the company has taken. We have assets, aluminium, zinc, silver, oil and gas, copper, assets that each of them can become a Vedanta of its own. And I think it's time to let all of them fly. It's great for our shareholders. They get to choose pure play models of what they want to be a part of, what journey they want to be a part of. So something very, very exciting and very well on its track.
Okay, on its track, that's what people would want to hear. But I know it's like asking you your favorite child, but within all of these 4-5 segments that you talked about, is there any which you believe is going to be, let's say, the fastest growing, or something which you're focusing on? Because you've talked about how silver, again, is something which you're very aggressive in terms of expansion there. Anything that stands out in terms of what will be the growth driver per se?
Each of these entities are vital and important entities for our country's future, for the world's progress, for the energy transition, for everything that we've spoken about. So all of them are equally important. When it comes to silver, silver is a passion area of mine. It's an area that, because silver traditionally is being used currently majority in India for traditional use, such as, cutlery, jewelry, etc.
Correct.
However, the disruption is going to come now when manufacturing really grows in the country. When we start making our own EVs, when we start making our own medical technology, silver is going to now become a very, very large part of that. And that's what's going to make silver very interesting, because silver is one of the, the best metals for any of these future uses. For solar panels, we need solar panels the surface area size of Spain for the energy transition to happen. So you can imagine the amount of silver we need. So silver is going to be a very, very critical metal for the future. Today we're almost at 800 KT. We're the third largest silver company in the world, and we really are determined to become number one.
Okay, so that's the way forward with respect to, of course, how India has to make sure that it's future ready with its requirement of the metals. But at Vedanta, because you do, don the hat of the non-executive director there, there has been a lot of chat about bringing the debt down, and you've done quite a bit already there. But what about the way forward?
So actions speak louder than words. We're really walking the talk. In just 2 years, we've reduced our debt by close to $5 billion US dollars, and you know, we're very, very much on track to ensure. We have spoken about reducing debt to close to zero, and that is the way we want to go, and we're very, very committed, and one may have seen it from the QIP to the bond refinancing to everything that we're doing is very, very focused to ensure we reduce the debt level at Vedanta.
Since I have you with me, let me kind of take a step back and ask you in terms of what's happening in the mining industry globally, because of course on one hand there is that entire chatter of the US-China, you know, kind of trade war per se, which is going to happen, the impact it could have on minerals. Lithium is one thing which is going to be the big game changer. What do you think is that one big trend, let's say in the mining industry globally, that you're watching out for, or you're very cognizant of, or you're watching it as a monitorable on an everyday basis, if any?
So, you know, you can, I mean, the world can see what's happening with, when it comes to commodity prices, because of they're booming,
yeah.
because of the importance that our sector is playing in everyday lives. You know, and people forget how important mining is in your everyday life. Every single thing that is there above the ground is coming from somewhere. It's coming from below the ground. And you know, keeping that distance from, you know, the backbone of our world is the problem, and today everyone's realized that, you know, and I think mining, or this entire industry of metals, minerals, is in such an exciting phase, because today is the time that innovation is taken over. You know, and something that I love to talk about is the evolution of each mineral is evolving. Each mineral that we use is evolving. You spoke about lithium, and today, with everyone talking about lithium batteries, people forget that the origination of batteries was zinc.
Zinc, yeah.
And you know, why to put pressure on just one mineral, which is lithium, and start innovating and working towards zinc batteries that can take over the EV industry. It'll be safer, it'll be less expensive, and overall it's, you know, it's much more accessible, and it can be, you know, absolutely domestically created. So I think these are the exciting conversations happening about how each mineral is evolving over time. What, you know, suddenly there is one mineral which is in demand, and then another comes up with innovation, you know, to take the pressure away. So I think very, very exciting, very innovative, and the future of the, you know, I was reading in The Economist that the future of the mining industry is going to be part of the tech industry, because there is not going to be any mining without revolutionary technology, which is very, very exciting.
And one more innovation that you've done is, of course, how you've included women in this workforce, which has been very traditional industry of sorts, and you always expect men to be the mainstay of that, especially mining. How did you bring about that change? And more importantly, culturally, was it a big, you know, big differentiating factor for you? Because on the ground, how was it taken by the men when, let's say, women were part of the mining, you know, industry then?
So today, gender doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all.
Do you think it's true even in rural parts of the world? Because it's been very traditional in the sense of men being those
so I'm talking in context of Vedanta. In the context of Vedanta, the whole gender differentiation does not matter anymore.
Great.
The fact is that, you know, there was a time where it was tough. Till 2019, women weren't even allowed to go underground. 2019, we won. You know, we went to court and we made it legal for women to go underground. We were the first company to get women underground. Now our mines are led by women. Not only our mines, our chief of security are women. We have women driving light motor vehicles. We have women, the first all-women underground rescue team of India is at Hindustan Zinc, and they went to South of America for a competition, and they came back in second place. You know, and it's absolutely amazing what women can do. It's amazing what anyone can do when they put their mind to it. So there's absolutely no differentiation. We do have a goal of 30% women by 2030. We want to, you know, I'm sure we'll get there much before that. We're already above 20%. And we really, you know, it's not only about women. We've gone far beyond that. You know, we have very, very strong transgender policies, LGBTQI overall policies. We, in fact, you know, have policies such as gender affirmation surgeries. We spend 2 lakh rupees towards their surgeries and give them 1 month leave for recovery. So we're really looking at diversity in a very, very holistic manner. It's no more about man, women, or any other part of the gender spectrum. It's much far beyond that. If you have the will, if you have the determination, and if you have, of course, the skill to be there, then you're going to be there.
Kudos to you for that. I mean, that's an amazing, amazing feat. And I think that's the trivia I would carry home with me, that 2019 was the first time that women were allowed in the mining sector, in the sense of going into the mines, because it was illegal apparently.
Yes, and in fact, it was illegal recently for women to work night shifts. That also we've fought, and now we are the first company in Orissa in aluminium where women are working night shifts.
Three hoots to you for that one. But sustainability is that one big angle really to watch out for, because these are industries which are just difficult, or at least have been thought of to be difficult to marry with sustainability, because ultimately you're getting this from the mother nature or mother earth, all of these minerals. How are you looking at kind of marrying the two together, and what are you doing around it?
So we started an ESG committee in 2020, and we built 9 very, very clear, ambitious, sustainable ESG goals. And these are at par or far beyond our global mining peers. Whether it's getting to net zero carbon before 2050, whether it's becoming water positive by 2030, 5 of our biggest companies are already water positive. Everything can be done in a way that's even nature positive. I wouldn't even say that today Vedanta is working towards a nature positive company. We have mines at end of life in Goa that we've reclaimed, that today have more biodiversity than when it was before mining had started there. We have these fields in Rava, which we've completely rehabilitated, and today there are critically endangered mammals that have showed up there, like the fishing cat. It's absolutely amazing what can happen if you put your mind to it. There's a way of doing everything and when you do it right, anything is possible. Mining before used to be possibly seen as an open heart surgery. Today it can be done robotically. There's with very, very less, very minimal invasion. You take out whatever you want, but you put it back in, and you make sure that once you're done, you're ensuring that the environment there thrives going forward.
That's great to hear. It's really heartening to hear how you've looked at managing the two together. But you're talking about wildlife, and that's something which is very close to your heart, and that since you were a small child as well. Do you get the time now to perhaps kind of pursue your passion there?
So I mean, this is something, for me, my spirituality is when I'm in the wild. I connect with spirituality, and we make it a point, Akarsh, me and Mahi, to spend 2 or 3 trips in a year. That is where our vacation usually ends up.
So it's not those cities and towns and all of that. It's more of nature.
It's 90%, unless Mahi says she wants to do something else. 90% of our vacations are in the jungle, in the forest, with our cameras. Mahi's also taken a small camera, which she started clicking. She's very, very passionate. It's amazing to see how she enjoys 9, 12, 15 hours that we spend in the jungle. It's fascinating, and it's something that helps when you come back to the workplace. It reignites, refreshes, gives you the best decisions I've made are ones that I've come up with while I'm in the jungle. So it's definitely some place to go, think, take your mind off things, and something that's a part of my life.
Okay, something that has been a part of your life. But you talked about initially how it was for you while you were growing up, and how you and your husband are looking at perhaps raising Mahi. In terms of that, what differentiation do you think, what are those values do you think are very, very important for you to kind of pass on, and of course let her also find her own identity?
Yeah, it's very, very important, because especially studying in Mumbai, where all the good schools are in a certain bubble of of children who come from certain comfortable backgrounds. It's very, very important to expose her to realities of life. And so things that I've taken from my grandfather and what he used to do with us. Mahi spends every weekend at Yoda, which is my animal shelter, to volunteer. She spends the whole weekend with the vets, takes care of the animals. It teaches her empathy. It teaches her how to think about individuals beyond just you and me, and I think that is very, very special, and it's very important for us. She makes her own bed, she cleans her own dishes. These are the values that we've been brought up with, and we want to make sure that Mahi is brought up with the same.
in terms of, let's say, the boardroom, and I wanted to get more perspective from you here, how's the decision-making process like? Because, of course, your father would, of course, be weighing in on matters because he's still actively involved in the company, while you would have a different view. How does it really work out in terms of decision-making within the boardroom? Do you guys have those tussles which go back home into the dining room as well?
First and foremost, we're very, very strict on governance. And it's very, very important for us to ensure that any decision that we're making is aligned with the decision of the board, is aligned with the decision of all our stakeholders. And when our decisions are aligned with the stakeholders, then we know it's the right decision. And going home and tussling and everything may be about the little things, but there's never going to be a decision that we'll make without keeping all our stakeholders in mind.
Okay, on that positive note, we'll wrap up the conversation. Thanks so much, Priya, for making time and speaking with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
Thanks so much for that.
Thank you.